buy an approved sacrifice so they could atone for their sins on the altar. What they have to do right now with the petrodollar, I think it's patterned after that. The petrodollar bargain, countries have to, in order to get the atonement of oil for the sins of a country going too wild, in order to get the atonement of oil, they have to exchange their currency to buy the perfect currency, the US dollar, in order to purchase that oil. And that was done by Henry Kissinger and Richard Nixon back in 1970, called the petrodollar bargain. And we are still to this day suffering the consequences of forcing that bargain into existence rather than allowing it. And John Tomlinson is here as a perfect example of bad policy to protect that. And I will call to remember, you folks, remember the caucus that we had when I was calling George W. out on his lying to us. Yes, he did lie and people died. But it wasn't what they were saying. It wasn't to get the oil. It was to make the oil producers over there continue to sell their oil in US dollars. And unless we are willing to accept the responsibility of putting a government in force who is lying to us to continue to do that, we will not have remedy. And God will not provide remedy to this Constitution. I'm just fed up with the lies or the diversion in order to keep from telling us the truth. Joe?
Yeah, not to get too off track, but if I understand about Jesus and the money changers, it
Call them
was
money exchangers.
exchangers.
Okay.
It wasn't that he was mad at what they were doing, just the place they were doing it, in the temple. Do I have that correct?
What he said is, you have made my house a den of thieves. So he was mad that they were doing it there, but he was mad that what they were doing there. See, the temple was made for atonement. You come to the temple so that you could get an approved, the animal that you get couldn't have a broken leg, it couldn't have a spot or blemish. It had to be an approved. But you know what they said? You have to have a perfect currency in order to purchase the So when you bring your currency in and your currency may have been a chicken, you know, some of them, but some of them actually brought currency in, but it wasn't an approved currency, so they had to have the temple coin. And who backed the temple coin? Rome. So Rome backed the temple coin, and so the coins that you traded in and exchanged for an approved currency to buy the approved sacrifice. The currency that you traded, you had to give a whole lot more. You had to probably give maybe, I don't know, a month's worth of work for something that was only worth a couple of days of your time. See, that's how the exchange of currencies work in this day. That's why we can't have a two-tier currency in this country. That's why Argentina farmers right now are burning their crops, folks, because they will not give them to a world governance that is going to steal from them. Jesus was angry because they were stealing from the average people, the hard-working people, that he represented their interests all the time. It wasn't necessarily where, it was why, and it was what. Temple is the place for the remission of sin, for the atonement. Dick? Oh, Al first.
So how do you know?
I don't know. What do you mean? How do I know?
No, this is back to the, how do you know about that Iran already had the nuclear weapon?
Well, General Valley, whom we have a high degree of respect, has put that information out, and because, folks, I'm so proud of our caucus, I'm so proud of what we do. Our numbers sometimes I'm not happy about. I wish folks could understand that it's necessary to get here, to be part of what we talk about. General Valley chose this caucus in Skype, right there, to break the news. And he told me, please don't talk about it till I break the news. He broke that news that should have been, and hasn't been. I'm bewildered. He broke the news that Iran already is in possession of that nuclear weapons, and many, because they got them from North Korea. All those tests that North Korea was doing, you know who got those? Syria. The testing is already done over there. We're putting a treaty together that denies them ability to test, and they don't need to test. Those tests are done already. They have those weapons. So that's how I know. And I trust General Valley. And nobody's talking about it. These people, and Dick, you can have mine. These people who say they should know, they're not saying it. They're not depending on General Valley. Dick, go ahead, I gotta get a drink here.
Argentina, is it communist?
Yes,
In other words, they're going through what Russia went through in 1917 with the crop, with
don't cry for me, Argentina.
Stalin,
You remember the Falkland
making
War?
the farmers.
The Falklands are right off of the Argentina. They were a British colony.
Right.
They are now controlled by communists. Okay.
No different than,
Point-
no
point-
different than
point.
Russia in 1917 when Paul was taken over.
The-
And Stalin did what he did
Okay.
later on.
The difference is the farmers are still trying to make, I guess it's a blend sort of like what China is. You can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but they're trying to make money from their crops.
Right.
It isn't so much communist, the fact, you know, and I may need to be checked on that. They are an England colony. I don't know that it's ever been dismantled. Because the Falkland War was about that. So they were trying to sell their product for a profit, and they would rather burn it than sell it for a negative.
That's what they were doing in Russia.
Yeah, yeah.
And Stalin wanted
When you follow up, please get the mic because your conversation is very good, and I want people who listen to this to hear it.
Stalin did the same thing to the farmers, and that's why the farmers quit farming,
Yeah,
as they did in Russia, and they were eliminated.
but at that time, Stalin wasn't doing a two-tiered currency like what's going on in Argentina. We need to understand this. This is a new element that we need to understand. You have no follow-up? Okay? Okay. Todd? Bill, you're doing a great job.
Is Venezuela communist now, or
I have a hard time saying that too. Venezuela.
Venezuela?
You'll never be able to say it right again. Are they communists? Yes.
And are they? They're not on the petrodollar, are they?
No, they dumped it.
They don't. Yeah. Okay.
I know we tried to assassinate their leader at one time.
I will not admit to that. Yeah.
Last night, we passed a proclamation in Washington County Executive Committee to support Israel. And what I'm wondering is, in the back of my mind, when Obama first became president and he violated the Constitution and he committed all these treasonable offenses, why didn't the Republicans on Capitol Hill, why didn't they impeach him and create a constitutional crisis? Would have we been better off under well, we had Nancy Pelosi at the time, but if they would have done this when Boehner first became Speaker.
Okay, there's a reason. You asked why.
I'm asking why.
They lost elections over shutting the government down. Remember Newt Gingrich? They lost elections over shutting the government down. The Democrats are smart enough to have made the Republicans pay if they tried to do that to Obama. And I want to bring up one more thing. Joe wanted the mic and then the fellow in the back. Before Joe takes that mic, Joe, you need to listen to him. One of the things that actually angered me so much about this Corker Amendment is we worked so hard to take Harry Reid out of the prominent position. Mitch McConnell had the prominent position of the Senate. Do you folks know what the Corker Amendment did? That Corker Amendment, by the structure of the way it came out, put Harry Reid back in control, and the cameras in the Senate are on him once again because he's holding all the authority as to whether or not this goes or doesn't go. That's what the Corker Amendment did, and I'm angry with all of the senators who initially voted for that to give that kind of authority to Harry Reid again. I thought he was gone. I thought some of his son beat him up enough to where he wouldn't be there again. Some say it wasn't his son, by the way. Joe?
How many countries are left dealing with the petrodollar, and how many more would have to leave in order to cause a collapse?
Good question.
And I might want to add to that, we are just days away from the end of a 7-year cycle known as the Mystery of the Shrika. Which is
Shrieker, you got that again on George Norrie. didn't you?
Yeah, that's a Jewish
Well, the fact of the
prophet.
matter is there is something to that, and I'll tell you why. Because that's every 7 year of Jubilee. And whether or not you believe about the Shrika, is that what I say? Shrika?
Something like that.
Whatever it is. Whether or not you believe, the fact that there are people who believe and will cause things to happen to accommodate the litany and the legacy of Shrika. Yeah, I think something, they could plan a collapse to coincide with that. Now, what was it I was going to say? It was going to be real good.
How many countries are left in the?
Oh, yeah, and it's very important. Okay, there were 10 OPEC nations initially that were selling oil in US dollars, and they in turn were required to buy our debt. But, like Germany wasn't an OPEC nation, right? But in order for Germany to buy oil, they had to exchange their currency for US dollars in order to buy their oil. So that made our dollar, the Federal Reserve could just go lickety, we had to buy sewing machine oil to keep that pressure on them. They could run lickety-split those dollar bills. The debt didn't matter. The number one export of this country became debt. Germany needed US dollars to buy their oil. It doesn't matter now how many other countries actually sold their oil in US dollars. It matters that those 10 nations won't require all the countries in the whole world now, the ones that have dumped their currency, the petrodollar bargain, they won't require Germany to buy in US dollars. Germany can buy yen now, and renminbi, and rubles. It can be a breadbasket of currency. You better beware when you hear that word, because it's no longer the US dollar. The US dollar is not king. And in order to get around the Constitution, to facilitate the inevitable collapse of the dollar and to try to reestablish that thing that's going to replace it, they have to get around the Constitution. They would have allowed that Constitution to die. And I say they cannot be dumb enough to where they do not understand the things I'm telling you. And if the things I'm telling you isn't true, come at me. Shoot me down. I want to be told and with authority that I'm not right about these things. We got one in the back, and then Dick, and then ask more questions.
Regarding the government shutdown, the claim that the Republicans lost, that election, back in the 90s with the government shutdown.
Yeah.
That I don't agree with. That can be challenged. I know
Yeah, you're right. It could be challenged, but the fact is, the
Democrats only
perception
gained-
is this.
The Democrats only
The Republicans are afraid of it.
2 seats in the House while they lost seats in the Senate.
I forgot your name. What's your name?
Dave.
Dave, listen, you may be right. You may be absolutely right, but the perception is the motivation that's keeping them from doing it again. They perceive that it will cost them the election.
They need to be reminded of the truth.
They don't care. They can't handle the truth. They don't care about the truth. They can handle it. They don't care about the truth.
Yesterday on Fox News, they had a former Joint Chief of Staff, and he was saying now it's going to be a lot harder to bomb on bombing missions in Syria because Russian troops and Russian tanks are there, and they cannot. They won't know who's on the ground.
What dog in the race? It's right. What dog in the race does Russia have in Syria? Can anybody tell me why Russia has an interest in Syria? Todd, get the mic.
Because Russia wants to send an oil pipeline to Syria. And they're also one of the very last allies that Russia has.
Yeah, China needs oil. And China, see, that's what, folks don't realize, that's what Afghanistan was all about. Afghanistan was a breakaway republic of Russia. You got Turkmenistan, what all those stands. Those were breakaway republics. And the problem is, we talked about abiotic oil here, folks. And this is so relevant. The Caspian Sea basin, Russia developed a drill bit that can go down 40,000 feet. Oil is not fossil fuel. A fossil has never been found deeper than 13,000 feet. Russia has hit abiotic oil way before we did, and they wanted to get it to China, to Afghanistan. The reason? They couldn't go through the Himalayas to China. That was hard to do. It was high and it was cold. Oil has to be warmed to go through a pipeline, and it can't go up when it's cold. Okay, so it was easy. The plan was to get it to China through Afghanistan and then Pakistan a little bit. Taliban was supposed to provide protection of those pipelines. But the oil companies lost interest because there was no protection. Russia wanted Afghanistan, when they broke away from being a republic of Russia, Russia wanted them back. That's what the war was all about. And the only reason Russia wanted them back was so that that Russian abiotic oil would flow through Afghanistan, Pakistan to China, and the US dollar would not be used to sell it. Oh my, is that true? Oh my, is the policy of funding the Mujahideen, Al-Qaeda, was it on us even then? Yes, it was. The Stinger missiles that ended up killing our men and women in the Gulf War were in the hands of Al-Qaeda because of our backing the Mujahideen to dismantle Russia's interest in Afghanistan. That's why we were there.
Yeah, they talk about the petrodollar. Russia being boots on the ground in Syria. That also be a concern for China too. China and the Soviet Union, are they kind of working together for their own petrodollar?
No, they're working together here. They will be in concert with this.
Yeah.
See, the fact is, folks, the reason Hillary's in so much trouble right now is China hacked her emails. China knows, and China turned over the information about Benghazi, about those weapons being conduited through Benghazi, to the people who raided Benghazi. And that's the information that will burn a lot of people who put this plan together. It's why they needed to blame it on a video. It's why Hillary Clinton, I think, is going to get executive privilege. God help us if Bill Clinton's ever in the White House again.
It'll be fun.
Save the intern.
It'll be fun.
Why is Tennessee, Spring Hill, Tennessee, teaching Islam in their 7th grade at this time as we sit here? And they have to study it, they have to recite it, they have to write it. Are you aware of it?
I am aware of it. I didn't know it was Spring Hill, that's where the Saturn plant is. It is going on in Texas. But that you make a good point. It's going on in a lot of places that we don't know about. And it's a good question as to why. The demographical change that they're after.
Do you realize that they have as many or more population as Dearborn in Spring Hill, Tennessee? We're being invaded.
And see, here's the bad part about their population, and I got bad news for Spring Hill. See, Dearborn's population is the world's largest outside of the Middle East population of Arabs. Listen very carefully. Not all of them are Muslim. Spring Hill, they're larger than Dearborn, they're Muslim.
Yeah, along with this end of the 7-year cycle of the Shrika, on the night of the 27th into the morning of the 28th, we're going to experience an elliptical event known as the Blood Moon. And there are some...
Okay, folks, before you discredit this, we're going to have the Blood Moon. And on the 25th, you know what? Back when in the year 2000, when we had supposed to have the electronic shutdown and all of that, I put food away. I prepared for it. I just had a lot of food for a very long time. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I know it's something that we need to be aware of. I think the electrical grid could shut down on the 25th of this month, of September.
Why the 25th?
Because that's the day they're calling for.
Not on fishing day.
What's special about that day?
Because listen, I'm not going to get into it that much. What I read was the 2-day following the Shrika is the 25th. I just read a couple times, and there's some relevance to that. So listen, folks. I don't want to be dissed by a conspiracy accusation, because the things I've talked about here today are not conspiracy. So when we go to where you just went and get me to comment on it, I do know that there are people who will respect that conspiracy so much that could actually cause an event to happen.
Right. I mean, what's the market going to
It's just like the Bible code.
Yeah, what's the market going to react on the 23rd?
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something about this market. Billy has a question. I'm going to get the mic back over to him after. The market is up and down. Billy actually had a question before him.
But just because of that proverb,
And people are getting confidence in the rebounding market. You got to understand this. The market goes up, it goes down, and they're all saying, well, just stay the course, don't get out, don't get out. It'll come back. There'll be a day when it does come back.
It's more like a comment on the Spring Hill.
Yeah.
The thing they did was like a 3-week course. It's kind of like what Dick Thompson spoke about up here at Calvary.
Yeah.
He went out to California and everything. The one thing that was really the kicker that had the people riled up, and there's supposed to be a PTA, a parent teachers meeting, and some of the people were really upset, but the teacher and the principal were kind of defending it because they said, well, they more or less accusing people of being Islamophobic. But what the people that raised their hand, I mean, that raised a ruckus about it, were the ones that when the children told them what was in it. It wasn't about a historical or cultural origin of Islam. It was because they had to put on that thing, there's Allah, there's only one God, and that's Allah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the people that believe in Jesus,
First pillar of faith. First pillar of their faith.
So they're supposed to be, that's what this guy was saying. Well, Bob Douglas brought up a good point on it. He said, when they have the class, which they said the Christianity class is going to do when they do the history of this country, and they're doing religious study, taking courses in it, but which a lot of schools are doing that now. But what Bob said was what would they say when they do the Christian class? Are they going to say that Jesus, will he say, I'm the way, the truth, and life, nobody comes to the
Well,
Father?
they won't let him say that.
He said they won't say that. What they'll teach them is love thy neighbor and stuff like
Right,
that.
right.
And so that's
See, folks,
what I want to
some of you may not have heard what I talk about with the first pillar of faith with Islam. First pillar of their faith is, and the reason it's significant that they're making kids recite it, is that Jesus is a liar. Now, in their writing of the language of the first pillar of faith, you won't find those words. But what you find is the dictionary definition of Jesus as a liar. Because Jesus said, I am my Father of one, and I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go, I'll come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there you may be also. And Thomas doubted him, and I'm not going to go through the whole litany of the verse, but Jesus said, I am. Thomas asked, how can we know the way? He said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh to the Father but by me. The first pillar of faith of Islam is that is a lie. And we have to understand that this country was built on the history of Christianity. And that's why they're trying to educate it out. They're trying to educate out because they're allowing this first pillar of faith, saying that God has no partners. And when you see them having a finger in the air, when they're holding the head of a Christian on the other hand, they're saying the oneness of God. And that sounds innocuous. That sounds like that's not so bad. No, the oneness of God is saying in the first pillar of faith that God has no partners. He's one entity, that Jesus Christ is only a prophet. He is lying when he tells you he is God. We believe in the Trinity, some of us, most of us. And what Islam is saying to us, and when we allow these mosques to be built, they are coming in and repopulating the demographics of our breadbasket of Bible Belt. That's why it's been going on in Spring Hill, with people who do not fundamentally believe that Jesus is God. God doesn't require by force to you to believe. But when you teach something other than that in a structured religion. Now, we can't teach Christianity because of the separation of church and state. Why aren't they talking about the separation of church and state with Islam? No, they're not. Oh boy. Go ahead, Tim.
I just learned this yesterday. The Southeast Michigan militias all over, the Michigan militia and other militias. And I'm wondering why Scott Walker hasn't done anything as governor of Wisconsin. But Wisconsin just gave Second Amendment rights to illegal aliens.
Because they are people with feet on the ground, persons. This is why, now listen, there has been a Supreme Court decision. Scott Walker had to do that. He didn't give them that. The Supreme Court did. You got to understand this. The militia can stand against it because they would be right. The Supreme Court says that a person has a Second Amendment right. Black's Law Dictionary describes a person as a corporate entity. It takes an individual to have a right. That's why the United versus United versus something decision where it gave corporations the right to freedom of speech to donate however much money they want. A Citizens United decision. That is, I disagree with that decision. A lot of my Republican friends don't know why I disagree. They don't disagree. But a corporation is a corporate entity. It is not an individual. The Bill of Rights was meant for individual rights. A corporation cannot have a Second Amendment right. A corporation doesn't have a Fifth Amendment right. A corporation doesn't have any protected rights. They are contract law. Their whole existence is brought into existence by contract, by verbiage and agreement and signed. So they do not also have a First Amendment right. The Supreme Court has violated just about every text of our Constitution. That's why I say the Constitution's died. That's a perfect example. But what that's done is allowed so much money to be billowed up and bought, and candidates have to answer to this big pile of money. They're not going to get elected, either Democrats or Republicans, both sides.
Isn't it scary? Isn't it scary though, Dennis, that a lot of these illegal aliens coming in here are terrorists?
See, they're not terrorists yet. All I'm saying is they can't be vetted as to whether or not they will take on the call, the sleepers. The head of Homeland Security has said that this is licensed jihadism, allowing these folks to come in like they're doing. John?
Yeah, I think I've got an answer to this. People can either think it's conspiracy or they can not think it's conspiracy. But the UN plan for global dominance to be implemented starting this month.
Yeah.
So,
Sustainable development. And the Pope is all over.
21.
The Pope is all over. Yep, we talked about Agenda 21. Yeah.
And the Pope's going to be talking here this month in the United States.
Yeah, and global climate change. See, they're going to be forcing us on the notion that man can cause climate change. And what we know is, because of some of the seminars Mike is doing, that there is geoengineering of our climate. But it is not carbon-based, manufacturing-based, man-produced. The geoengineering is Earth in Alaska that is producing such things with the clouds and things. That's not conspiracy, folks. Call me. They belittled Gary Pettifolio because he wanted to hold a town hall meeting just to get some information together on geoengineering and the chemtrails, because geoengineering requires chemtrail release of components. But just for wanting to get information together, he was belittled. Okay, but yet we will suffer the accusation of climate change being caused by human contribution. And that's the only human contribution, is purposely putting it in the air in the form of aluminum nanoparticulates. But we will let the whole world be changed under sustainable development because of carbon credits. That's Al Gore thing. And he's selling carbon credits. You can carbonize the whole world if you have enough credits to sell. Plant a tree and you get 5 credits. The world is crazy, folks.
Where is the chemtrail debate in Congress right now after that?
It is nowhere.
That retired Air Force female.
The video we saw, they're not giving any traction to that. I wish I had something different to report. I wish Mike could tell you something different. She is very afraid. She is a true hero. She's not backing down.
Was she an actual pilot? Or did she just...
you're going to have to recheck the sources for that. I think so. I think she came out of that being an actual pilot. But she's got the goods on that. But she's afraid for her existence. She's having to take some precautions. All right, folks, it's almost 11 o'clock.
I thought she was in the bookkeeping
She is now.
section where she was supposed to order that stuff and she didn't.
Yeah.
And they put it in anyways. I
Yeah,
thought that's where she was to begin with.
yeah, which doesn't rule out the fact that she was a pilot before. I think I do recall her having that in her background. Listen, folks, thanks for coming out tonight. One announcement, Ted Cruz's father, Raphael Cruz, and the wall builder's fella, what's his name? David Barton. David Barton will be speaking Friday night at Capital City Baptist Church up in Lansing. Pat Colback will be introducing him. On Saturday, there's going to be, Raphael Cruz is going to be speaking in Lansing. That's a $55 event to have dinner with him. It's $25 at Capital City to hear the wall builders. It's next Friday night. Now, I don't know how many of our folks are going to go up for that event. It's going to be a good event. But I'm going to be away. I'm going to go see my little grandchildren, one that is so gung-ho about going into the military. I'm going to go visit my kids. Dick's going to ask a question. We were getting ready to close. I love it. I love people asking
Let me
questions.
ask one last question. How can Ted Cruz be on?
Hold the mic a little closer.
How can Ted Cruz be on the ticket? He's born in Canada.
Okay. No, we're really, it's
I
a,
realize we have one in office now that's debatable, but this one we
He
know
said-
for a fact was born in Canada, not on American
okay,
soil.
it has gone through a process. I'm going to give up on this because I made a contention early on. It's gone through a process by which the Supreme Court has denoted and connoted that he is a natural born, same as a natural born citizen. Okay? Again, decisions mean something in the Supreme Court. He was not born on American soil, neither was a Barney. The birth certificate was a fraud, and nobody's, it's openly admitted right now. The person who was going to allow the truth to come out got killed in a plane wreck. The clerk in the county where he was supposedly born in Hawaii, they have the evidence that was a false birth certificate. It's just clear as a bell that it was false. Whether or not that proves that he was not born in America, it doesn't. It just proves it was false. He gave false evidence. But anyway, she's dead now. She'd be like,
Frank Marshall Davis speaks actual.
actually, let's not go there. You know, we got a year to put up with it. The consequence of the willingly suspension of disbelief that Hillary talked about has cost a severe price for this country, folks. So, if you choose to go up there to hear Raphael Cruz, fine. I think next Friday night we've decided we're going to cancel so that